I'm Ian Johnson from Big Tire Garage, and this is Tested 4x4. Today, we're taking a look at a classic first-generation Bronco and comparing it to a Generation 6 brand new Ford Bronco. We're going to look at the technology in both of them, how they have evolved over the years, and most importantly, we're going to look at how, ironically, both of them were introduced to do battle with an icon in the off-road world. The first year for the Bronco was 1966, and this is a 1975. This is what you think of when someone says first generation Bronco, because the styling didn't really change over the years. Now, it was built very similar to how vehicles of that era were built when they were capable of handling hardcore off-road terrain. It's a body-on-frame construction, solid axle, both front and rear, and Ford offered multiple engine options underneath the hood. This particular one is powered by a V8. Visually, the 1975 Bronco showcases its boxy design, featuring a removable hardtop, bold grille, and circular headlights. It had everything that you were looking for around that time when you were talking about an adventure-style vehicle. Had good approach and departure angle, which means the axle is very close to the front bumper, and there's not a lot of body overhanging on the back. People fell in love with this truck, and they still love it today. Unlike the classic Bronco, the 2022 Bronco really wraps its arms around modern driver convenience. This has everything that you'd expect to find in a brand new modern vehicle, but at the same time, it's designed to tackle some serious off-road terrain. It has driving modes that you can select from inside the passenger compartment, locking differentials front and rear, and a sway bar disconnect that allows you to ride excellent on-road and then also tackle some pretty serious off-road terrain. Now, unlike its competitor in this class, the Bronco did not go with a solid axle in the front. They basically decided that independent front suspension was going to be the future for the Bronco, and that makes this vehicle great on and off-road. So now with the early Bronco here in the Big Tire Garage, we can look at some of the nuts and bolts about this truck. Now, this truck is modified very similar to how you're going to see most early Broncos out there. It already came from the factory with the V8 engine, but the owner has ditched the carburetor and replaced it with an aftermarket electronic fuel injection. That just really helps out with the drivability. Pretty much everything else, all the modifications, well, they happened underneath the truck. Underneath, it has aftermarket radius arms that help improve axle articulation and a 2.5-inch lift and a 1-inch body lift. This helps accommodate the larger 35-inch all-terrain tires. The rest of the drivetrain, well, it's relatively stock fare. It's got a Dana 44 front axle, Ford 9-inch rear axle, C4 automatic transmission, and a Dana 20 all-gear cast iron transfer case. One upgrade that is a must for this model of Bronco is the larger capacity fuel tank. This one is equipped with a 23-gallon aftermarket tank with an in-tank pump to feed the EFI. Now, from the factory, this early Bronco shipped with a 13-gallon tank. That left you with a range of just over 100 miles on a full tank of fuel. With our 6th gen Bronco in the shop, let's take a look at it compared to the classic Bronco. Now, yeah, on the surface, it's very similar. It's a 2-door, small, 4-wheel drive SUV, but the technology inside this modern Bronco has outpaced the classic Bronco like nobody's business. This engine in here is a direct injected twin turbo V6, lots of power, low emissions, and great to drive every single day. Back it up with a multi-speed automatic transmission, a selectable transfer case that the computer chooses what mode you're going to put it in, and then 2 drive axles at either end. The difference between the classic Bronco and this Bronco is this Bronco uses what's called independent front suspension. Now, the independent front suspension, it's really good on-road and for light-duty off-roading. The reality is, even though this truck has been modified with aftermarket bumpers and larger wheels and tires and an all-new suspension system, the reality is it's not a rock crawler. Best option you can have for one of these Broncos is to protect everything underneath it. Like all modern cars, there's a lot of technology underneath this thing. So you want to skid plate this thing from front to back because, unlike a classic Bronco, anything goes wrong with this truck electronically, it goes into limp mode and you got to basically crawl your way home. It's the one downfall to a modern vehicle. But saying that, if you live up in an area where, I don't know, maybe it snows a lot, you got inclement weather, if you're trying to decide whether you're going to drive a classic Bronco or a new Bronco, this might be what you want, because it's more like a new car with some throwback styling to that old Bronco. So if we talk about fuel economy comparing the classic and the new Bronco, the classic Bronco, right around stock form, was averaging about 12 miles per gallon, which is pretty standard for that generation of vehicle. Now the modern Bronco, this one here, it is advertised to get an average of about 20 miles per gallon. Now a lot of that has to do with advancements in technology. This is a 2.7 liter direct injected small V6 engine, and it has what's called a start-stop feature. So when you stop at a stoplight, the engine actually shuts off, and then when you get ready to go again, it will start again. That will help if you're trying to drive long distances or you're using this vehicle as your daily driver. Now, like everything else, when you modify it, those fuel economy numbers, they go out the window. I would probably estimate the two vehicles that we're testing today, the classic Bronco probably averages around 10 miles per gallon, and this particular Bronco, as I pull up on the trip computer, I can tell you right now, it's averaging around 14. But that's a small price to pay for driving two vehicles that look this cool. Now, even though it wasn't known for its fuel economy, the available 302 and 351 that you could get in these classic Broncos definitely made it fun to drive with all that V8 power. Add to the fact that then it became a staple at off-road racing events like the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000. Really proves that this Bronco is meant for serious off-road driving. If you're going to compare the two vehicles, the brand new Bronco and the classic Bronco, driving the brand new Bronco, in all honesty, it's just like driving a brand new car. You really can't tell that you're driving anything other than a brand new vehicle, which is fine. That's what you want with a new car. If you're going to own a classic Bronco like this, well, there's a few things you got to get used to. It's going to be kind of full of squeaks and rattles. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be a little wandery on the road. It's going to have some uncomfortable moments. It's not going to have that new car smell. Occasionally it's going to smell like gasoline. But that's what owning a vehicle like this is all about. Back when they built trucks like this, manufacturers were not worried about your comfort. They were worried about the vehicle's ability to get a job done. Is it going to be strong enough to go off-road? Is it going to be tough enough to handle all kinds of terrain? That's what they were worried about. They weren't worried about how many cup holders can they add, or seat warmers, or hand warmers, or all that kind of stuff. It's a utilitarian truck. It's in the name, SUV. It's what it should be. That's why if you're going to own a classic vehicle like this, you're just going to have to get used to that. Trust me, once you drive it and you realize how cool it is, you'll appreciate that fact. Plus, you're going to get way more thumbs up from people driving something like this than driving a brand new car. Now, when we're talking about price, the first gen Bronco left the showroom floor right around $5,000. And when you adjust that price for inflation, that ends up being about $20,000 to $25,000 worth of today's money. Now, the Gen 6 Bronco, they start low 30s, but no one buys them in that trim. This particular model left the showroom floor in stock form right at $49,000, and then obviously was modified from there. Now today, if you're looking for one of these early Broncos, you can spend up to $250,000 for fully restored ones. Now ones like we're driving today, you can pick those up for mid-20s, which is actually a screaming deal for a classic vehicle like this that you can drive every single day. Yes, driving one of these is not everyone's cup of tea, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're gonna drive a Bronco, this is the one you wanna drive. So if you're looking for a classic 4x4 to add to your garage, make sure that you download the Hemmings Marketplace app. You can search through tens of thousands of classic and collector cars and trucks for sale through Hemmings Marketplace. So that's a wrap on the tested 4x4 comparison of the classic first-gen Bronco to the modern 6th-gen Bronco. Now, if you're asking me which one of these vehicles would I choose, even though that modern Bronco has all that technology underneath it and it's a great daily driver, if you want to drive a Bronco, this is what you want to drive. The classic first-generation Bronco with all of its iconic style and attitude. This is what you want to be seeing driving down the road if you want to own a Ford Bronco.